My name is Anita Lieverdink. Welcome to this virtual roundtable of TekDelta and the Dutch AI Coalition and part of the Upstream event. So I'm Anita, I work at TNO. I set up and manage public-private partnerships for innovation. Well, today I can combine my two programs. I'm the founder and director of TekDelta and the coordinator of the working group Startups and Scale-ups of the AI Coalition. Well, TekDelta, very shortly, most of you know it, is a matchmaker that connects the startup world and the corporate or private public organizations world. We believe by matchmaking them on a curated basis, they both benefit from it. So large organizations get access to the speed and agility and innovativeness of startups. And on the other hand, the tech startups and scale-ups can make use of the market access and knowledge, and maybe also data sets that larger organizations can provide them. Our matchmaking is usually theme-based, and since artificial intelligence is such a fascinating technology, we wanted to collaborate with the Dutch AI Coalition today. The Dutch AI Coalition is a national public-private partnership, and Kees van der Klauw, who is the manager of the coalition, will tell you all about it after the panel discussion. Today we have a full day on AI. So this morning, Maurits, and together with a bunch of startups and people from TechLeap, we had a very interesting, about 2.5 hour in-depth workshop on legal affairs. Today also you've had many matchmaking conversations and these panel discussions. So hopefully it's inspiring for you. But let's get to our great panel. All of them look from a different angle on data sharing for AI. So we have the Ministry of Internal Affairs here. We have a lawyer, we have TNO and the Dutch sharing working group of the AI Coalition, and a tech startup that has an interesting solution to share data. So let's start. Maybe you can introduce yourself. Jelle, could you take it away?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Jelle Verburg. I'm working for the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and I am the product owner of the Dutch National Data Portal. It's called in Dutch data.overheid.nl. Well, the Dutch National Portal is a data broker between supply and demand of data. So together with the team, I'm responsible for implementing part of the open government policy and making available data sets findable and providing support to government organizations with opening data. So, your story, Anita, about matchmaking, we are also organizing matchmaking within our data communities. So we help reusers to get data they want, if it's possible, of course. So if you have any questions about data, don't hesitate to contact me, and we are working on government data and with a data broker with our portal.
Super, thank you. Okay, Wim Kees, could you take over?
Yes, my name is Wim Kees Jansen, and I'm co-founder of Sinto, and that's a tech startup. Actually also participating in this matchmaking event, so fresh out of a matchmaking session, sure. And also planned one after.
It's a heavy day for you, yeah.
So it's a fully booked day. Yeah, but in short, Sinto is a startup that aims to provide trust in the realization of data-driven innovations, and specifically with developing software for data anonymization. Yeah, we enable organizations to boost data-driven innovation in a privacy-preserving manner by providing AI software for generating synthetic data. And I think we will come back to that later in this session.
Sure, we do. Yeah. Okay, Maurits?
Yeah, thank you, Anita, for organizing this amazing event today. I'm Maurits Kopp, a managing partner of AI Recht and fellow at Stanford University in Silicon Valley. And I'm a strategic intellectual property lawyer and publish articles that contain recommendations to the European Commission on AI and data legislation and on sustainable innovation policy. I'm really excited about this multidisciplinary panel today and looking forward to explore solutions together with my colleagues and answering questions that the audience might have during the session.
Thank you, Maurits. And then my colleague, Frans.
Yeah, less rechts, Anita, thank you. Yeah, Frans van Netten, I'm Program Director AI at TNO, and we do two things mainly. One, we look at autonomous systems and we look at human-machine teaming. Those are the two important topics, and we apply that to the areas that we're active in. And we do that in cooperation with many partners. On top of that, I'm chairman for the data sharing working group at the Nationale Coalitie and involved in other initiatives such as the international data spaces.
Yep. Okay, well, now everyone has made an introduction. Let's make an introduction on the theme. Actually, we're talking about responsible data sharing. Actually, the big question is, why is that so hard? And maybe Maurits, as a legal professional, could you explain in short what the main legal roadblocks are for data sharing and how the European Commission aims to solve these challenges?
Sure, I can. Well, the main roadblocks or legal hurdles for the uptake of AI and data sharing are privacy and GDPR concerns, and of course the uncertainty about ownership of data. And there's a huge lack of trust in the existing rules because they are complex and abstract and not written specifically for AI and data. And we are here today to remove those perceived obstacles, offer solutions, teach and explain how, if you know what you're doing and abide to the rules, how we can establish legal certainty, trust, confidence, and the right unicorn spirit surrounding access and use of data sets. And we've done our homework and we know exactly what you can and what you cannot do with personal data, government data, industrial data. On the basis of the GDPR, the FFD regulation and contracts, mixed data sets for machine learning, testing, validation can be shared and used. And we can provide clarity on who owns the data and can determine if intellectual property rights are applicable or not. On top of that, the European Commission is drafting its law of AI. And the overall goal of these new laws is to stimulate the uptake of trustworthy AI in the European economy. And the EC is also designing a legislative framework for data governance. And this is called the Data Act. Both laws are expected to be adopted next year, and this will make access to data easier. It will provide clarity about the rules for AI, such as liability, insurance, and risks. And lastly, synchronous to new proportional innovation-friendly laws that encourage trust, legal certainty, and safeguard human rights, we are adopting trustworthy AI by design into the architecture of our systems so that they support democratic and constitutional values. Well, how do we do that? For example, by cultivating federated learning and generative adversarial network methods, cryptography, anonymization, AI, blockchain hybrids, and privacy-preserving synthetic dataset generation techniques. And I'm sure my colleagues can tell you much more about the exciting features of their technology. So back to you, Anita.
Yeah, that's a mouthful, and also looks promising that there will be a new Data Act, but it's not yet implemented. So I would like to ask Frans to start with you as the chairman of the Data Sharing Working Group and also from your work at TNO. You must have seen a lot of organizations struggle with these legal boundaries Maurits just explained about. How are we able to help them?
Yeah, indeed. So when we started the data sharing working group in the Nationale AI-coalitie, we did a first round trying to, so first asking how people are feeling about it and if they understood it. And what came back was that there's a relatively low level of understanding what can be done with data sharing. So there was a general sense of it's all or nothing. Like I'm sitting on this mountain of data and I know somebody else can use it, but it's mine and I'm not going to give it away. Or people on the other side who said, I need all this data, how can I get it? I just want it. And that's not a very productive conversation. So what we did was we started with building up, say, a knowledge base in the Nationale AI-coalitie. And really trying to make people see that it's not all or nothing. There's different ways to go about data sharing. And if you understand how it works, and if you put a little bit of investment in it, in time and in effort, then there are solutions to the problems.
Okay, and I think this knowledge base is also documented, right?
Yeah, so that was the starting work that we did in the AI-coalitie, and it was in the first quarter of this year. So there's 2 documents basically available on the website of the AI Coalition. And one is called Verantwoord Datadelen voor AI. So there you can really, there's an explanation on, say, the different options and the topics and how do you do this technically, legally, organizationally, so that you have at least some grip and a background on, you know, what are the options, what are the possibilities.
Yeah, so that's a good advice to take a look at that report. Let's go to Wimke's, because you, privacy regulations make it difficult or maybe sometimes even impossible to share data sets with personal information in them. Can you explain how your startup Sinto tackles that issue a bit more than you just did?
Yeah, definitely. And we do share Maurits' opinion about privacy and GDPR. And we really started with 3 friends having a background in realizing data-driven innovations. And typical frustrations that we had was risk assessment, long legal contracts, delay for starting your projects. And I think key here to mention is with no data, you cannot realize those data-driven innovations. You cannot realize that AI. So that was really like our starting point, and having anonymization techniques in the market, realizing that they didn't really work anymore. They are out-fashioned at the moment because they simply cannot deliver anonymous data sets anymore due to all the techniques, public data sets do we have. So that was basically the whole statements, like those classic anonymization techniques do not result in anonymous data. So what to do? And yeah, then we came up with a completely new way of tackling this problem. Why not generate completely new data, synthetic data, artificial data, fake data, dummy data, whatever you want to call it. We just simply generate new data, but we are able to do that in a way with applied AI to preserve all the values, statistics, relationships that are in the original data set, so that on data set level, you can use that synthetic data as if it is real data.
That's exactly what I was supposed to say, that anonymization is not new, and the downside is, of course, that you lose quality. Yeah. But how does your technique prevent that depreciation of the data?
Yeah, so I think 2 unique selling points that we target on, and that the first one is, of course, that privacy. And that's really embedded in the technique and the fact that we generate completely new data, synthetic data. And the second aspect is about that data quality. So really making sure that the synthetic data can be used as if it's the real data. And that if you are going to do, for example, if you develop, for example, an algorithm or an AI model or a machine learning model, that if you train that model on synthetic data, that the results will be exactly the same as when you did that on original data. And that's possible due to the fact that we apply AI in the data synthesization. And this is also how we test and develop and evaluate our model and our software, by really training those complex models and compare the results.
And I've heard that you're now flirting with Jelle, with data.overheid.nl, because you've met through the coalition, and Jelle wants to open up data sets, and people might have problems with that. Jelle, could you explain why you're so interested in Sinto's solution and what you do at the Data.overheid?
Yes, it's very interesting for me because I'm responsible for the making data sets available within the government of the Netherlands. So I'm helping government organizations to open their data, and one of the easiest reason to say, oh well, I'm not opening data because there's personal data. And for me, it's very it's important to show, hey, well, we have a data set, so what is possible to share, not as possible not to share, but what is possible to share. So well, as when Kees mentioned, this solution is very will be very helpful to share data and also tackle the problem of personal data. So, I think, in my opinion, there are more available data sets will help AI solutions and create value.
And should, because I can imagine that still people say, well, okay, then Sinto has to take a look at this data set with the private information in it. So there's, of course, it's a matter of trust. And knowing that the techniques are safe and secure, but how do these parties know that, and how does that work?
Well,
yeah, you can.
Yeah, maybe from our side about this synthetic data. Practically, our solution works on premise, so yeah, it works on your own computer. And I think Jelle has some more info from the Data.overheid side.
Well, a lot of government organizations also has privacy officers, and well, they should understand the technique of how to, sorry.
One of the privacy officers.
A lot of privacy officers should understand the technique of it.
So actually, if they understand the technique, they would be more confident to indeed share their data. Okay, but there's more, of course. There's also an ask, maybe that's a question for you, Maurits, that an entity like, well, a legal entity or Autoriteit Persoonsgegevens can reassure people that upfront, not in the end, after the deal's being made, that the way they shared their data was done in the right way, and they wouldn't expect any claims. Would it be possible to create such a certain trusted party that can look over one's shoulders and help startups and large organizations in their processes of responsible data sharing?
Exactly, this is what we need, and the European Commission should take citizens and businesses by hand and construct specialized institutions that provide this guidance, certainty, guarantees, and trust on the current possibilities regarding the development and use of AI, machine learning, and data processing. And institutions that can really cut red tape burdens, government structures that can adequately manage digital transformation. And it could indeed work together with the Autoriteit Persoonsgegevens, and Finland already has such an institute. And guidance is a crucial part of the implementation of new data and AI legislation.
Super relevant. Okay. Hey, and this is actually about data that is hard to share to make it easier. There are other technical solutions, of course, as well. Maybe Frans, you can dive into that. I know about the research at TNO on multi-party computation, federated learning. Could you give a quick overview? I know that's hard to do it in a quick way, but of possible techniques to indeed get information out of the data, maybe even without sharing or sharing it in a secure way.
So there are many different ways, but say very simply, you can change the data, anonymize it, pseudonymize it. So just change the records in the sense that people cannot relate it back to the individual. But the ones that you were referring to, those are the advanced tools where you don't bring the data together, but rather in an AI environment, you let the algorithm travel around to the databases, and only the outcome of the algorithm is being shared. So by doing that, the algorithm gets trained and gets smarter, but the data in itself does not get changed. That is used, for instance, in federated learning and multi-party computation technologies. And
could you give a very simple example, maybe, for those who are not familiar?
Yeah, well, we use it, for instance, in COVID right now. So with COVID, we have a specific use case that we apply in the AI coalition. And clearly that is a situation where data is, for instance, in different hospitals. Now, you cannot just pull the data from the hospitals in one big data lake and start nicely, analyzing that kind of data. Another way is to go with your algorithm, your analysis, basically, to all those individual hospitals and say, okay, what are the parameters? If somebody gets this, that, and the other, what is the outcome for a patient? And only the outcome is being shared centrally. And that way the algorithm gets smarter. So we learn more about the disease by the visiting of the algorithm to the local databases without having to pull all the data to a central place. So those things are really possible.
Yeah, and how do organizations like hospitals react to this? Is this satisfying enough for them? Does it give them trust?
In all honesty, this is difficult because you have to pass those privacy people, those privacy authorities that are sitting there and saying, oh, this is not possible, you cannot do this, and blah, blah, blah. So that's not the easy part. But where you see it happening with the same technology, by the way, it's not any different than what we talk about here, is, for instance, in the industrial area. So where it's not people that we talk about, but it's more competitive, challenging data. So there, apparently, it's easier to get things done. It's not about people, it's about things. But the technology is the same. So I have no doubt that we use it now in kind of pilots and in proof of concepts in the COVID setting. In the future, it will be normal day-to-day data share.
Yeah.
Or rather,
if you have a solution in the healthcare, that's the hardest part, maybe. But also trade secrets. I can imagine that would be a big hurdle for parties to open up in some way their systems and their data. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's technical, it's legal, and it's organizational. Those are the three basic things that you have to.
I've also heard you talk about data lake. Of course, we have the association with with China or Israelia, but you talked about a good data lake. So I guess it's one that doesn't give away your privacy. But can you explain what that would look like?
Well, sometimes you just need the data together. So in certain applications, in certain data analysis techniques, those multi-party computation technologies, they are too heavy and they require too much compute power, for instance. Mm-hmm. So in certain situations, you just need to create a data lake. And there are good providers that do this. So big organizations also in the Netherlands that help you in supporting that. So a data lake is not necessarily infringement on things like privacy issues, etc. Yeah. No, there has to be good reasons. It has to be done in the right manner, and there are organizations that can help you in solving it.
Yeah. Maybe Maurits or Jelle, from a governmental point of view, your European Commission or maybe the ministry. What would you say is our level of data sharing and trustworthy AI compared internationally? Who wants to answer?
Well, I will go first. We're doing okay, but and we have promising initiatives, as we heard today. But it can always be better if you want to be leading, and we want to win. Our AI ecosystem needs to be bigger and more competitive. And two very important policy recommendations that the coalition gave to the European Commission are to embed our European roles, our norms, standards, values into the design of our technology. Second, in addition to the overarching principles of trustworthy AI, which needs to be legal, ethical, and technically robust, we advocated for a vertical, differentiated, industry-specific approach regarding incentives and risks based on the pyramid of criticality. This means that certain sector-specific AI boundary setting requirements in high-risk industries, such as health, finance, self-driving cars, are stricter than rules in lower-risk areas, such as entertainment and art. And it's important that rules do not hinder rapid, sustainable innovation. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I see. So you make first a risk assessment and what kind of level of trustworthy AI you need. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, I agree with you, Maurits. Also from the government data, we are always looking to other countries, and especially for data. We are looking to our colleagues of France or Ireland. They are working on data communities. So this kind of approach we want to introduce in the Netherlands, and it's to working together on the same knowledge, the same data, and the same topic. And well, this is a very helpful approach to keep in contact with the reuses of data, and also for the AI solutions. So in Europe, it's okay what we do, but we always want to have more. And yeah.
But that's indeed a very practical way. The data communities. Could you explain? Because you say you want to do that, but they're already launched. Some of them. Could you explain a little bit more what application areas and how can people join this type of community?
Yes, we already launched 2 data communities. For example, education and mobility. So we organized from the government side a lot of organizations who has knowledge about the data in this specific domain, and we are collecting the data on the portal. So if you take a look at the portal, you see all the government data on this specific topic. And we also interact with reuses of data. And so the community from reusers and data owners, yes, are in a collaboration with each other to work on the topic, and also to share data if this is possible. So the community works together with experts on the topics in a specific domain.
And could they also be, like, I know there are some mobility partners of TekDelta here right now. Could they also be the larger organizations, or are you looking for startups to join and make use of the governmental data? Or
no, all the organizations who are working on this kind of topics, if it's startups or it's larger organizations, or it's from the government organizations, also all that kind of organizations could evolve in the data communities. And we are there for them.
Well, that's a good way to maybe finalize a bit this first discussion, because I'm very interested in if there are some questions from the audience we could answer with this panel. There you are already. Hi.
Yes, I'm ready. So we haven't received any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But in the meantime, I do have a question. Jelle, it's for you. It's about the data communities. And you are the product owner of Data.Overheid, of course, and you make available data sets more findable. Imagine that I have a startup. In what way can you help as the government with my specific problem? Do I have to connect with the data communities, or?
Well, we have a lot of ways to come in contact with each other. You could use you could send in, for example, your data request to us if you have a specific request of data. So I'm looking for a specific data set. You could send us your request, and we our team can help you. Also, we have the data communities where you could drop in your question. And a lot of experts are there, and they are sharing the knowledge or sharing the data if it's possible. And so we have a lot of ways to come in contact with each other. So a lot of ways to deal with it.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Any other questions, maybe? Not yet? Okay. Maybe let's then go to the main takeaways of this discussion, because of course we just highlighted a few of the legal hurdles and technical solutions. Maybe to start with you, Wim Kees, what would be your takeaway of today?
Yeah, I think one important one is, of course, we talked a lot about data sharing. But I think another important one is about knowledge sharing, because I think a lot of companies have the tendency to really look and try to find solutions within the organizations. But I think there are plenty of really great, amazing solutions in the market. So I think the real takeaway is, of course, we went over a couple of really nice solutions in this session. My invitation to all of you will be go to the market, explore new technologies, new solutions in order to realize data-driven innovations, and really explore them, test them, and learn from it.
Great, yeah, and that's exactly what the AI Coalition is also about, to learn from each other.
Definitely.
Yeah. Who else? Maybe Frans. What would be your message to the
main
audience?
takeaways? Yeah. So like Wim Kees and I think everybody else here also in the call mentioned, there's a lot possible. So it's not an all or nothing. It's not I need all of this data and I lose all of this data, that kind of thing. There are various options. But the way to do this is to get active in communities. It's about data sharing. And there's these real good communities that are already out there, like in Eindhoven, Brainport, or in Zuid-Holland, Smits, or in Amsterdam, Amdex. So engage with those communities. There you find people that are having the same issues or can help you in solving those problems. And like-minded individuals that come across different things and can help you in moving forward. So maybe that's one thing. And secondly is, it will become easier. So we are really working in the EU, globally, nationally. We are working in a plug and play environment where it becomes easy for small, large organizations to retrieve data, share data, etc. And that's something that we're really working hard on. So, but don't wait for that to happen.
Yeah.
So start working, and don't hold back, because the competition is really fierce, and everybody understands that data is a very important commodity going forward. Very, very important.
Yes. We just this morning we had this legal workshop, and it's also on legal, and they explained it's about a rainbow of legal rules, but actually one was asking, but in what sector am I? Because you have sector rules. Am I an architect? Am I in building? Am I in programming? Am I? So actually AI is it's heading so fast that legislation should keep up with that. A nice bridge to you, Maurits. What would be your takeaway?
Well, I have two. First of all, I'm super optimistic and confident because we know exactly what we are doing and which direction we should take. And I'm not saying this all is easy. It was hard for me to figure it all out and get to the bottom of it. And I'm a Stanford Fellow. It took me 2 years, but now we took the hurdles and it's easy and fun. So work hard and be persistent of your goals. Second, I would advise startups to implement the AI impact assessment into their workflow. This is a concrete tool to audit if your AI and data are legal, ethical, and technically robust, in line with the European trustworthy AI paradigm. And to do the external audit, you need a multidisciplinary team that consists of data scientists, an AI developer, a software programmer, a lawyer, a privacy specialist, an ethicist, a manager, and someone, we mentioned it before, who has the sector-specific knowledge, such as a doctor in the health sector, to conduct this AI impact assessment. And if you're interested, just contact the ECP or our office for more information, and we will be happy to guide you.
That's great. Is it only for startups? I missed that point. Or is it also for larger organizations?
That's a great question. It's also for scale-ups and also for multinationals who are operating globally.
Mm-hmm. Great. Jelle, do you have a final remark or lesson or just thing you want to share with us?
Well, first of all, I agree with all the members of this panel discussion.
That's boring.
Well, let me say there's one more thing I want to say. So it goes about communities, it goes about data sharing, but I think one word is very important. It's the word of impact. So what kind of impact does it has? And also for your organization where you want to work with data, it goes about impact that the data has. And the communities, our portal, the solutions we made, it also has to deal with impact. So that's I think the main takeaway I want to give. And well, if you have any questions, if you want to go, want to deal with government data, contact us, join our data communities, and we will help you.
No, that's great. So we have an impact assessment via Maurits or ECP you can do. Frans has a reading on responsible data sharing on the coalition side. You have data communities and data.overheid.nl where there how many data sets already being opened?
More than 15,000 data sets from government.
That's impressive. And we have Sinto that has won the Philips Innovation Awards and is ready to scale its solution on synthesized data. So I think we should just stop talking and start doing. But not before we've listened to Kees van der Klauw, who is the coalition manager, and who will give us a short introduction for those who are not familiar with the Dutch AI Coalition on what we're actually doing. Here's the people of the panel. Thank you very much. You can put your camera off and sound, and I thank you. And I want to ask Kees, I'll introduce you properly. The overall manager of the AI Coalition, a very experienced innovation professional at senior level. He's also a people matchmaker. He's skilled in innovation, operations. He really loves his job, I think, and he enjoys pressure. He will give you an overlook of the coalition, its goals and activities. So if you have questions for Kees, please put them in the chat. Kees, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Super.
I hope my cam is on. So thank you very much. Too much talking about me. It's all about the coalition and the collaboration. And in the past few minutes, I've already heard some great examples of what collaboration can do, because there's so much knowledge distributed across individuals, across organizations. And I truly believe that only by working together, we can make a big impact in the Netherlands and in Europe in general. Against, let's say, the fast movers that started already 10 years ago. So I'm going to share a short presentation and some talking Let me see if I can share it. There it is. I hope you can see it. So the title is, this is how to pronounce it. What the heck is the NLAIC? What the heck is the Dutch AI Coalition, and why do we need it? So first about AI, I'm pretty sure that you already know, but it's important to repeat, because the fact that few people know is not sufficient to create a real transformation. And it's absolutely urgent for the Netherlands and for Europe that we start acting. So I will always start with the message that AI will disrupt society positively and negatively in terms of jobs, loss of jobs, but also many, many new jobs. From research, we know that probably 40% of all jobs will change in the next, let's say, 20 years or so, but only 4% of the jobs will disappear. So this is all about change. Businesses will change, business models, and we've seen that already, that trend, that the commoditization is taking place in manufacturing. Many electronic solutions, software solutions become commodities, and that means you can still make a living in those commodities, provided that you're big and dominant. And you see differentiation moving to other business models, servitization, and I already heard, data is a commodity, but having the right access to data and knowing what to do with it, that becomes a differentiator. And it's about all sectors. So some sectors may think, well, it's not for me, it's only for the high-tech sector. Forget it. Every sector, but also every part of your life will be affected by AI. And the balance, the weight and balance, so how much it will impact our lives, both positively and negatively, but also the balance, is there more positive than negative, will depend on how we prepare ourselves now. And there's no way of postponing. It's act now, which requires quite some strategic view and vision, but also embracing uncertainty. This is this about, okay, let's build new buildings or houses or a few hundred kilometers of new asphalt. This is uncertain, but it's quite sure that the opportunities are massive. And we have a good starting point in the Netherlands. If you look to, for instance, our research basis, we are rated number 3 worldwide. In certain areas we are specialists, and others we are a bit weaker, but we are lagging in terms of the speed moving forward. So you could say we started 25, 30 years ago already with good research in AI, but that itself, it doesn't give you a free lunch for the future. So we have to make sure that we start moving, and we see countries around it, and I'm not only referring to China and the US, but also France, Nordic, Germany. They're making massive investments. So it's important that we move. If you look to the situation that we are lagging in implementation, and I'll come back to that, we also see a lot of isolated, scattered activity. So there is a lot of knowledge in companies, in government departments, but it's scattered. Also, the Dutch ecosystem of universities is a bit scattered. The other thing is that we have a lack of critical mass and investments, and we're really doing something about it as a coalition. As I said, I think we have opportunities to come back very strong, because there are a few trends going on. And the first one is a human-centric approach. So people in Europe, but also worldwide, maybe not yet in China, but they're a bit fed up with this technocratic approach, which is only supporting business, but not looking very much at the human aspects and the privacy aspects and the buy-in and the trust. I think by building a trustful approach, you can have a real competitive value in the future. Definitely in Europe, but I'm pretty sure that in many more countries. So human-centric, trustworthy AI becomes a differentiator and an export article. The other thing we have as an opportunity is an integrated approach. And it's all relative. But the Dutch have a good history of working together. We call that polderen, which costs a lot of energy and a lot of debate. But in the end, we find each other to organize ourselves across the value chain and across disciplines. And I think in Europe, we have a unique position in that. The third thing, and this is also embraced by the Dutch government, is the learning approach. Yeah? Don't think that you can plan for the next 7-8 years a program and predict the outcome. Just start experimenting, including with, for instance, legal frameworks, because also legal people don't know exactly how to interpret, how to frame. Start experimenting, learn fast, and improve. And that's definitely what you see in China, and we can learn a bit from that approach. Next sheet. The coalition. So what the heck is the Dutch AI coalition? Well, we are pretty new, so I can imagine that you have not heard about it. It's only 1 year old. Let's say 1 year before the first idea started, with a number of people from government, from companies, from science that said we have to get our act together. There was also a call by Europe. But only 1 year ago, on the 8th of October, we established ourselves with what was a 31st mover participants. In the meantime, we have more than 400 organizations joining, ranging from governments, local governments, also national governments, to all the high schools, all the universities, other education, many companies and startups. Yeah? I'm really proud that we have also many new companies, but also representatives of society. So we have representation over the entire value chain, from research to application to society. We have many disciplinaries. So Maurits is representing legal, but we have technical people, we have social people, we have software people, etc. So in general, the quadruple helix, which is the usual triple helix plus end users, is critical for success, particularly if you strive for human-centric AI. We have in our coalition what we call horizontal working groups, and they are addressing common subjects. And the example of Maurits is quite clear. Why would you, in all individual companies or sectors, start interpreting the GDPR? Yeah? That is hell of a job. So that is something that we jointly do, yeah? And we drive change, we drive interpretation. We do the same for human capital and training. We do the same for data sharing that Frans van Etten is representing. But also we have a working group that Anita is driving on the startups and scale-ups, and I come back to that. Yeah? That's horizontal knowledge. You could say that's the library, yeah, where you can walk in and get your knowledge. It's less dusty. It's quite dynamic, but it's are the building blocks. But it all comes to application in vertical domains, yeah? And we have them in the meantime, I think, in 12 domains: the public sector, the government, defense, civil security, but also, for instance, the technical industry. We have the cultural sector. We have the financial sector. We have mobility and transport. Of course, healthcare. You can all find them on our website. And what we do is combining the horizontal working groups, which is relevant for everyone, with the vertical application domain. Because, and I heard it in the last few minutes of the previous session, it's all about linking the AI knowledge, yeah, with domain knowledge. Yeah? You need experts, you need farmers in order to implement AI in the food industry. Yeah? You need bus drivers in order to implement AI in public transportation systems. Yeah? That is the linkage that we want to make. And I think there we have a chance as the Netherlands combining those ecosystems and working together. Yeah? So what we do is linking the horizontals and the verticals and building knowledge. We are matching the AI know-how with the application domains. We are matching partners because it's all about people. And today you had an excellent example of how to bring together people with complementary knowledge. And the coalition is for orchestration, support, but also commitment and no tourism. Yeah? So we expect that people that join are actively joining. And that means you can sometimes lean back and enjoy the ride by learning from others, but we also expect that you contribute. That could be with critical questions, can also be with knowledge that you can share. And there's no problem if you have a business benefit in that. We are not a commercial organization, but everyone has an interest, and the idea is to maximize the common interest. Very important, the European linkage. Netherlands is small. We are part of Europe, and we also believe that we have many business opportunities in Europe. And we have dedicated people to support you in the European linkage. Now, to get to something which is very interesting, in the meantime, we have been granted 23.5 million as a kickstart, which we are going to use in the next few years for very much common subjects. But we are in process of getting the 1.1 billion money from the growth fund for really investments in projects. I think we are progressing quite well. We still have to do some work. In the coming months, there will be an external committee doing the review, but we have been selected as one of the five that now goes in the second round from 11 subjects that were initially proposed. So it looks good. If you want to know more, look at our website or send an email to info and you'll get all the information. Now startups.
Maybe one, actually we're about the time, but this is a very important slide. Just one question, quick question. Jamie, are there any questions in the chat, maybe for Kees?
Yes, we just received one. It's from Jan-Peter Dominic. How do we ensure that domain experts not train the AI to be faster horses? This is a quote of Henry Ford. If I would have asked the customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, not cars, of course.
Yeah, well, that's where...
Just one thing. We have about 5 minutes because there's a matchmaking conversation afterwards, and we need people to take a short break. So maybe you can integrate it in the in the last slide, your answer.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Actually, it's part of the last slide, indeed. Yeah. And I know from experience, I've worked all my life in a large corporate, which, by the way, was quite innovative. But I can assure you that several companies or part of large companies have no clue what AI will do to them or what AI can do for them. Yeah. And yes, they know what is AI and they go to training. But if you haven't lived in that world, actually, you don't know. Yeah. And that means that they can be complacent and say, hey, we are building on what we are strong on now, which is them holding them back. And in my view, nothing to lose is a very important driver for innovation. And that's often what startups have. They have nothing to lose. It's all they have is to work on their proposition. And large companies have so much to lose, so they don't act. Yeah? And that's absolutely where we need to combine the young minds, and that is not necessarily young people, but at least young of mind, to combine them with establishment which has the domain knowledge. And indeed, domains might ask for faster horses, but you will, as startups in AI, you will tell them, well, maybe you should try something else than a horse. And I think really this is what the purpose is of matchmaking and bringing those views together. And the best way to communicate is to set examples. But we know that you all have, as startups, some common challenges, and that's why we have the working group of Anita to work on those three: access to data, growth capital, and partnerships as a common subject for all the startups in this area. But we truly believe that by joining forces, we can make an impact. I think that's my story.
Thank you so much, Kees. And thank you all for participating in this in the panel discussion and also in this short introduction on the AI Coalition. If you need more information, you know how to contact us. You can use the great platform of LinkedIn, for example. And I wish you a happy last matchmaking round if you still have one, and good luck in applying AI. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.